Welcome, everyone. Chuck Manatt used to do that, and it always worked. Welcome. I've got a couple of housekeeping matters that I'm supposed to bring up. First of all, to log on the Wi-Fi network, the password is IFES 17 with IFES in all caps. And if you're a Twitter kind of person, the Twitter tag us on Twitter at IFES 1987 when tweeting about tonight's event and to follow the conversation. Now that that's out of the way. Welcome. Welcome to the annual Charles T. Manatt Democracy Award and Josie Baxter Award ceremony. I'm Charlie Cook, and I'm your Master of Ceremonies this evening, and I apologize for however I handle this. This is not in my normal comfort zone, but I'm honored to host tonight's event. As a 39-year friend of Bill Sweeney's, the president and CEO of IFES, I've followed IFES's work for many years. From Afghanistan to Zimbabwe, the talented and dedicated team at IFES makes a lasting impact on people's lives. Since 1987, the IFES team has provided critical election assistance to many of the important global elections that we've watched from afar from Washington. For 3 decades, IFES has been resilient in its commitment to working with election officials to ensure that every voice has a vote. From election administration to voter education to inclusion and women's empowerment, the IFES team provides support in setting the fundamental building blocks for democracy in place. IFES works with civil society to ensure that women, persons with disabilities, youth, ethnic and religious minorities, and other marginalized populations have a voice and a vote. I would like to thank the IFES team for their passion and dedication, often working under challenging circumstances to bring legitimacy to the right to vote and to give people a say in the way they are governed. It is through the ballot that sustainable democracy and governance are established, and it is through the work of IFES that stable societies are formed. That stability is critical to building viable economies and encouraging investment, fostering peace and security, and most importantly, providing citizens with the opportunity to succeed. Those societies are stronger as a result of IFES work, and we in America are also safer as a result of democracy promotion abroad. The work of IFES and its partners is far more than soft power. It's fundamental to building resilience and securing peace. At this turbulent moment in our global history, I think we can all agree, now more than ever, we need to stand behind the work of organizations like IFES. Tonight, as we commemorate IFES' 30th anniversary, we are celebrating democracy and 4 remarkable champions for the cause of freedom. Judy Black, a former IFES board member, vice chair, has a lifetime of experiences in embodying the vision and the values of IFES. She has exhibited an inspiring commitment to global democracy and to empowering women to be leaders. Is Congressman Price here? He's not here yet, so I'm switching. Improvising. Our international honoree is His Excellency Luis Almagro, the Secretary General of the Organization of American States and former Uruguayan foreign minister and senator, who has dedicated his career to ensuring more rights for more people. Tamar Zhvania, thank you, chair of Georgia's Central Election Commission, is a leading figure in the election administration and the 2017 Josie Baxter Award honoree. Under her leadership, Georgia's Election Commission has conducted credible elections and continued to professionalize its election management efforts. It is now my pleasure to introduce Bill Sweeney, President and CEO of IFES.
Good evening, and thank you for the introduction, my dear friend of 39 years. I thought it was 40, but that's okay. Who's counting? And thank you, all of you, for being here tonight. I am Bill Zhvania, President and CEO of IFES, and I thank you all for joining us this evening. At IFES, we believe the right to vote is a fundamental political and human right. Since 1987, we have worked in 145 countries across the globe to protect and promote this right. For 30 years, the IFES team has dedicated itself to giving a vote to every voice. By providing technical assistance to election officials, empowering the underrepresented to participate in electoral and political process, and applying field-based research to improve the electoral process, IFES works to advance good governance and democratic rights. We believe that we are making a difference and helping to build stable democracies around the world. As an independent organization, IFES is uniquely positioned to deliver neutral technical advice to election management bodies. Our assistance is tailored to the specific needs and realities of each country and culture that we support. IFES stays out of the limelight, allowing our local partners to be at the forefront as we work with them to build sustainable democracies. We are celebrating IFES's 30th anniversary and tonight's honorees on the occasion of Mahatma Gandhi's birthday. He once said that he understood, quote, democracy as something that gives the weak the same chance as the strong, unquote. IFES believes in the same tradition as Gandhi, believing that all citizens should have a voice and a vote. This is a critical period for the global democracy movement, which faces very real challenges. At a speech before the Community of Democracies on International Day of Democracy, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson noted America's unique status and ability to meet those challenges, saying, quote, Americans are committed to standing up for democratic principles and practices. It is not only central to our foreign policy, it is who we are as a people, unquote. At IFES, we will continue to champion democracy's role in American foreign policy and work with all of you to advance the right to have a say in how one is governed. Tonight, we honor 4 champions of democracy and human rights who embody IFES's mission and the legacy of former IFES Board of Directors Chairman Charles T. Manatt and former IFES Senior Advisor for Election Administration Josie Baxter. I have the honor of welcoming many distinguished guests. I think I've welcomed over half of this room in less than an hour, but let me start by formally recognizing and thanking for their leadership and support of this organization and tonight, IFES Board Chairman Ken Blackwell and Co-Chair Don Schweitzer. We all build on our predecessors, and we are especially honored tonight by the presence of my 2 predecessors as President and CEO of IFES, Richard Sudriette and John Pierre Kingsley. In addition, I thank IFES Board Directors Denise Napier and Cleta Mitchell, Cleta who could not be here tonight, but both generously volunteered their time to co-chair tonight's event. Denise, members of the IFES Board of Directors, former members of the IFES Board of Directors who are here with for the 30th anniversary, could we recognize and thank you? Denise, we're up. We have some current and former members of Congress. I think the current members of Congress and Senate are in the midst of a vote, which was scheduled, and they should be here shortly. Members of the administration, representatives from the diplomatic corps, including ambassadors from a number of countries, senior officials from around the globe. Thank you all for coming and joining us, and thank you for your public service. I would also like to recognize IFES's partners, the new president of the International Republican Institute, Dan Twining, and my friend Ken Wallach, the president of the National Democratic Institute, as well as all of our colleagues in the Consortium for Elections and Political Processes from, who are here from IRI and NDI. Could we recognize all of them? Two final recognitions. Ken Wallach announced to the NDI board that he was going to end his career as president of the National Democratic Institute. This is an individual who has dedicated his entire career to both the promotion of democracy worldwide as a mission and the role of civil society and political parties in it, as well as building an absolutely fantastic first-rate organization, the National Democratic Institute. So I have the microphone. Ken, congratulations and thank you for your contributions to the cause. Finally, let me recognize the women and men who work with me every day on this cause we call democracy and making the practice of election administration a global practice that delivers service to every citizen on that one day called Election Day. Could we recognize the women and men of IFES, please? Thank you very much. Mr. Cook, welcome to the stage.
Tonight's ceremony celebrates the legacy of the late IFES board chair, Charles T. Manatt. Chuck nurtured the next generation of leaders, and as one of the architects of the global democracy movement, he helped establish IFES. The Democracy Award recognizes Chuck's achievements and honors individuals who share a common dedication to freedom and democracy. Each year, IFES honors one Republican, one Democrat, and a member of the international community who demonstrate Chuck's profound and unwavering commitment to democracy and human rights. At this year's ceremony, we also are honoring the legacy of former IFES Senior Advisor for Election Administration, Josie Baxter. The Josie Baxter Award recognizes the contributions of elections professionals whose skills, dedication, and sacrifices to the field of election administration epitomize the mission of IFES and embody the spirit of Joe Baxter. Tonight we are also celebrating the IFES 30th anniversary. Since 1987, IFES has been at the forefront of the global democracy movement, having worked in over 145 countries over the last 30 years. Amid successes and setbacks, the IFES team has remained resilient in its commitment to giving every voice a vote. Tonight's ceremony also serves as a fundraiser, with all proceeds going to the IFES Innovation Fund. The fund provides the dynamic and creative IFES team with the necessary support to develop original projects that address important and challenging issues of democracy and governance. The Innovation Fund focuses on 4 key areas: promoting gender equality, adequate use of technology, electoral security, and human rights and the inclusion of persons with disabilities. I encourage you to read through the printed program for details on the important projects the Innovation Fund has helped produce. This year, the Innovation Fund will support an IFES project that addresses a hot-button topic in election administration, digital security. I am pleased to announce the winning proposal, Driving Advancements in Transparency and Accountability in Elections, from Heather Szulagi, Erica Shine, and Katie Alanya. The project aims to address election management bodies' lack of capacity to secure data while simultaneously maintaining transparent electoral processes by establishing global guidelines for data management, security, and privacy. Congratulations to Heather, Erica, and Katie. Tonight's ceremony and the special projects funded by IFES Innovation Fund would not be possible without the generous support of the sponsors acknowledged in the printed program and on signage. I thank you on behalf of all of our colleagues at IFES. And I now have the pleasure of inviting the chairman of IFES Board of Directors, Ken Blackwell, to the podium.
Thank you, Charlie. I have the distinct honor of being the lowest profile chairman that IFES has ever had. It is my honor to introduce you all to and bring to the stage Judy Black. I have prepared remarks, but I'm going to go off script. I grew up in a community where neighborhood was important. And I tell you, I could get in trouble at one end of the public housing project, and by the time I got home, my mom already had the news. And that was because I had an aunt in every window. You know, these young folks today have the internet. My mom had the auntie net. Moved information just as fast. It is one of the things that has underscored my appreciation of Judy Black's contribution in the space in which IFES operates. She has a network that she puts into play for the good and in recognition of the dignity of the human person and the importance of the notion of self-government. The second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence talks about a self-evident truth, that we're all created equal, that we're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Judy understands that our human rights, our fundamental human rights, are not grants from government. They're gifts from our Creator. And in that notion, she understands that we have an obligation to make sure that the human dignity of all individual voters across the globe have a right to self-governance and participation. Judy and I have interacted in this space, whether it's the American Council of Young Political Leaders, where she was chairman, whether it was when I was a local elected official and she was in the Reagan White House, and she in fact opened doors for us little people in the halls of Congress and the White House. Judy Black has been there for all Americans. She has taught me how to walk and work across party lines. And as the vice chairman of IFES, she has demonstrated that in and out of office. And so it is, a great pleasure, because all of these accomplishments can be read in the program. But I'll just tell you, Judy Black is a person that exemplifies something that my buddy and my wife of almost 50 years, but my buddy Denise and I talk about, and it comes out of a little-known organization outside of our community, but it was the Federation of Colored Women's Clubs. Dorothy Height, the great civil rights legend, led that organization. But they had a motto. The motto was, lifting as we climb. And Judy, I want to say to you, and I want to say in tandem to Denise, because she's been a workhorse for this dinner tonight. I want to say thank you for always lifting as you climb. Judy Black.
Wow. It's always a little bit of a worry when somebody you've known for that long says they're going to go off script, but that was worth it, and thank you, Ken. I have enjoyed every moment that we've ever been able to work together and for the great causes. I appreciate that introduction so much. It was far too kind and far too flattering, but I kind of like it, so thank you. Before my brief remarks, I just have to take a personal moment to give a big shout out to my best friend and my husband, Charlie, who's been with me every step of the way as we fight for the good of democracy. And so I thank you, Charlie, for being here with me. It's hard to believe that almost 25 years ago, 25 years have passed since our great friend Chuck Manatt started talking to me about IFES and the work of work that we have done on the important values of encouraging people in elections. Chuck encouraged me to get involved with the board of IFES, and we all owe a great debt of gratitude for the work that Chuck had done. We also, Cliff White, you know, that great bipartisan group of people that got together with these dreams and ambitions, and so we stand on all of their shoulders. I had to look up a couple quotes on elections that I could give you tonight, and one of them I didn't have to look up. It comes from one of the elected officials that we know and love so much, and that's John McCain. John McCain, if I've heard him say it once, I've heard him say it 1,000 times. Elections have consequences. And elections do indeed have consequences. But one of my other elected heroes is Abraham Lincoln, and so I decided to see if he had said anything about elections. And I looked it up, and the first one that popped out that I thought was kind of interesting and a little bit timeless was this. Abraham Lincoln said, "Elections belong to the people. It's their decision. If they decide to turn their back on the fire and burn their behinds, then they will just have to sit on their blisters." It's still timely and a fun thing to think about. Well, on this 30th anniversary of the IFES organization, I do humbly accept this 2017 Democracy Award. But you know what? I do it on behalf of all of the IFES employees and all the members of the board who I've served with over the years, because all of them have labored throughout the world to extend an important and most valuable underpinning of basic human freedom: the freedom to select one's own leaders. Since 1987, IFES's people have worked in, as you've heard, over 145 countries to advance good governance and democratic rights. They are the global experts utilizing local solutions to expand sustainable democratic principles that citizens should have the rights for free and fair elections. I have witnessed these passionate advocates as they work in developing democracies, as well as mature democracies, ensuring electoral integrity, accountability, participation, and inclusion. Our great survey work and research work has opened eyes on issues in dangerous and challenging countries like the Ukraine, Afghanistan, Iraq, and even if you look up most recently, a case study in Africa entitled Elections Worth Dying For, you ought to read it. And of course, I'm very proud over the years of the work on women's empowerment, where IFES has always had a keen eye set on fortifying women in all areas of democracy and governance. We continue to be vigilant in ensuring that gender equality and women's inclusions in that process has an impact throughout the entire world. This work has been the passion of so many people over the years because we all believe in freedom. And elections are the pillar of freedom. Ballots are better than bullets in protecting our freedoms. And so on behalf of all the IFES family, I thank you again for this very meaningful award, and I thank you for all the work we have yet to do. Thank you, and God bless America. I said I'd do anything for a piece of crystal.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Don Schweitzer, and I am the co-chair of IFES. My chairman, Ken, who you just heard from, and I have, because this is a nonpartisan and bipartisan group, those of you in the room who know both of our histories, you can only imagine that occasionally we do have interesting conversations on the side in our board meetings. But I am very pleased to serve as a co-chair of this organization. And let me say my congratulations to Judy, who we also served together as co-chairs for a handful of years on the IFES board. And Sherry and I both have a long relationship with Judy and Charlie. And so congratulations to you, my pal. I'm up here tonight to introduce our Democratic nominee, and that is Congressman David Price. The Congressman represents North Carolina's 4th District, a rapidly growing research and education-focused district, which includes Durham, where Sherry and my youngest daughter lives, her and her husband, and a baby that'll be becoming another constituent shortly. So we have a particular interest in you taking care of that part of the world, David. In Congress, the Congressman serves on the House Appropriations Committee and is the ranking member of the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Appropriations Subcommittee. He is also a member of the Appropriations Subcommittees covering Homeland Security, the State Department, and Foreign Operations Funding. Before he went to Congress in 1987, and I remember when you came, and I'll tell you why in a minute, Congressman, the Congressman was a professor of political science and public policy at Duke University and is the author of 4 books on Congress and the American political system. In 1981, the Congressman worked for Democratic National Committee Chairman Chuck Manatt, for whom this dinner is named, as the executive director of the Democratic Party's Hunt Commission on presidential nominations, which was set up to change the way that our party selected presidential candidates. The reason why I remember that, sir, is because when you were elected, I was a staffer at the D-N.C., and I was very proud to see a graduate of the D-N.C. become a congressman. Congressman Price is a recognized leader. By the way, I also remember the second time you came to Congress. At that time, I was once again at the D.N.C. when the Congressman took a couple years off at one point in his career from U.S. Congress, and when you rejoined, I was still at the D.N.C., only in another job. So I remember you well. Congressman Price is a recognized leader in foreign policy and a stalwart supporter of global democracy. He co-chairs the House Democracy Partnership, which he initiated to help strengthen parliaments in emerging democracies. Through the Congressman's leadership, the Democracy Partnership has worked with parliaments around the world to promote responsive, effective government through peer-to-peer cooperation that aims to build technical expertise in partner legislatures, which is exactly what IFES's purpose to exist is. And so we appreciate his leadership through these years. His work in Congress has been critical to the success of global democracy movement. His tireless efforts to strengthen democratic institutions are evident in his long history of public service and commitment to expanding the House Democracy Partnership. Please welcome to the stage, and before I do that, I must acknowledge my own delegation who's here today, Congressman Senator Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island, Congressman Jim Langevin, and Congressman David Cicilline. And if anybody can figure out where I'm from Rhode Island, and I'm pleased to have, and by the way, Jack Reed sends his regards too, Congressman, to you who can't be here. So let's present Congressman David Price to the stage to receive this award, and congratulations to you, sir.
Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. It's great to be with you. I'm honored to be here with so many friends and colleagues and distinguished guests to receive the Charles T. Manatt Democracy Award. Especially glad to join you as IFES celebrates its 30 successful years of working to strengthen democratic institutions around the world. This award means a great deal to me in many ways and for many reasons, but one of them is that Chuck Manatt had a great deal to do with my own entry into politics, party politics, more than 35 years ago. I'd taken leave from Duke University to serve as the executive director of the North Carolina Democratic Party for the 1980 election, and I'd hardly returned to the classroom when in 1981 I was pressed into service as the staff director of the D-N.C's Commission on Presidential Nominations, otherwise known as the Hunt Commission, or as the people who brought you superdelegates. And please hold your applause. Chuck Manatt, who had just been elected chair of the D-N.C., had recruited his longtime friend, Jim Hunt, to chair the commission, and then Hunt recruited me. It was not what you'd call a glamorous assignment. In fact, it gave me a lifelong aversion to writing party rules. But it also gave me my first real exposure to the workings of our national party at a time when Democrats were reeling from electoral defeat and pursuing ambitious internal reforms. As the party chair at the time, Chuck was at the forefront of this reform effort. He was a mentor, of course, to our friend Bill Sweeney, to Ron Brown, who we remember fondly, and others he brought into party leadership, and I considered him a mentor as well. A few years later, following a 1984 election that proved especially vitriolic in North Carolina and especially disastrous for our side, I decided I could do about as well as some of the candidates I'd been trying to get elected. So in 1986, halfway through Ronald Reagan's second term, I won what we would now call a frontline seat. My initial focus in the House wasn't on international affairs. I was focused on issues closer to home, but I was quite aware of the challenges of the time, the end of the Cold War, or the waning of the Cold War, the third wave of democratization that was imminent, and the fact that the U.S. had begun promoting democracy abroad as an enduring goal of foreign policy. For a political scientist who'd focused academically on the institutional role of the legislative branch, it was an auspicious moment to be asking what lessons our own democratic experience could offer the rest of the world. And the most direct early answer to that question in the Congress came in the form of a task force chaired by my friend Martin Frost and the late Jerry Solomon, a task force that worked in the early 90s, a unique moment in history, to support democracies emerging from communist rule. These countries had parliaments in name only, with neither the experience nor the capacity to serve as legitimate governing institutions. And so we reached out to support and strengthen those parliaments with an emphasis on staff training and IT and research capabilities. The Frost-Solomon Task Force, it was called. It came to an untimely end as an indirect casualty of the Gingrich Revolution some years later, but democracy promotion was back on the forefront of our national debate a decade later. There was bitter disagreement over what the term meant in the context of the wars of Iraq and Afghanistan, but a fledgling bipartisan group of members led by former Representative Doug B. Ryder, who many of you will remember, and myself, we began to contemplate once again what role Congress as an institution could play in supporting democracy abroad. And so after some fits and starts, in 2005, the House of Representatives established what was known initially as the House Democracy Assistance Commission. Then Speaker Dennis Hastert appointed former Representative David Dreyer. I would say that was an inspired choice. And by the way, the commission is still strongly led by Peter Roskam, my colleague from Illinois. But David Dreyer was the founding chairman, and I became the founding ranking member, and then served as chairman from 2007 to 11. The basic idea was and is to work member to member, staff to staff, to provide resources, training, support to legislatures trying to find their foothold in a developing democracy. But now our focus is no longer on the former communist states, although we've had a lot of unfinished business in Central and Eastern Europe to deal with. We now have a worldwide focus from Peru to Afghanistan, from Kenya to Kosovo. It's fortuitous that the recipient of the Baxter Award tonight, as a matter of fact, comes from our original and very active partner of the state of Georgia. Moreover, unlike Frost-Solomon, our new commission could now work in partnership with USAID and with well-developed network of democracy support organizations, NDI, IRI, IFES, and others, to build on each other's efforts and to amplify our collective impact. So here, all these years later, 12 years later, the House Democracy Partnership has formal partnerships with 20 legislatures around the world, continuing to offer training and support to our early partners as well as more recent additions, such as Tunisia, Sri Lanka. In fact, in Tunisia, I personally witnessed the extraordinary work of IFES not so long ago, while serving as an international election observer during the first post-Arab Spring Democratic presidential election in that country. Since I'm fast in the process of exceeding my time, I'll close with two brief observations from HDP's work. I think they are relevant to the collective endeavor that brings us together tonight. First, democracy as a system of government remains and always will remain, I believe, a work in progress. That's true in every country and in every context, including our own, 228 years in. This fact should counsel humility. What's worked for the United States may not work for Liberia or Georgia or Indonesia. None of us have figured it out exactly, and the answers will be forever elusive. One of the most rewarding aspects of HDP's work is to return from an overseas mission, realizing we've learned as much as we've taught. We also should be vigilant. We also should note that democratic backsliding is not only possible but likely in every context. It's not just in faraway places, but right here at home as well. HDP's unofficial motto is that while free and fair elections are essential, what happens in between elections, the slow, uneven development, the careful stewardship of the norms and traditions and institutions that are the lifeblood of a democracy, is just as important, perhaps sometimes more so. The second and final observation is that supporting democratic institutions abroad remains in America's core national interest. We shouldn't have to emphasize that, but I think we do. I think we do have to remind ourselves why we do this, and of course there are many reasons, many moral and human reasons, but it's also a matter of the kind of world in which we can flourish, in which our interest can be pursued most effectively. There's sometimes been a false trade-off posed between governance and other developmental priorities, as if the strength of a country's institutions were somehow marginal, or somehow unrelated to the challenges it faces in health or education or even in military capability. Governance is absolutely basic. It's a short-sighted approach when we ignore that or shortchange it. But this year's budget request suggests that we do indeed need to be vigilant. Defending democracy support as a goal of national policy has become an existential challenge. So as we celebrate 30 years of good work, we must redouble our collective efforts to make sure we can continue our good work for the next 30 years to come. I'm immensely impressed with and proud of this organization, very deeply honored to receive this award. I thank you for that, but I also pledge to stand with you as this fight goes forward. Thank you so much.
That still works, even after all these years. I hope you all enjoyed your dinner. It's my pleasure. Oh, okay. Actually, it was good. Please welcome IFES Board Treasurer June DeHart to introduce the Joe C. Baxter Award honoree.
Thank you, Charlie. And good evening to everyone. Can you hear me? I guess I have to lower this so you can hear me. I am June DeHart. I'm a member of the IFES Board and Treasurer. And tonight, our co-chair, Cleta Mitchell, could not be here, so Bill asked me to step in and do this introduction, but I am honored to do it. When I tell you about Tamar Zhvania, you will be so impressed with her, and hopefully I got that right. Tonight, we are honoring the 2017 Joe C. Baxter Awardee, Tamar Zhvania. The annual Joe C. Baxter Award recognizes the contributions of election professionals whose skills, dedication, and sacrifices to the field of election administration epitomize the mission of IFES and embody the spirit of the late Senior Advisor for Election Administration, Joe C. Baxter. Now, before I proceed with the introduction of Tamar, I would like to welcome some special guests here tonight. The State Minister of Georgia on European and Euro-Atlantic integration, as well as Georgia's Ambassador to the United States and his wife. Welcome tonight. Tamar Zhvania has been the chairperson of Georgia's Central Election Commission since 2013. Under her leadership, the commission has conducted credible and transparent elections that have been critical to Georgia's ongoing democratic transition. Her resume demonstrates a sustained commitment to ensuring free and fair elections. She has represented the Organization for Security and Cooperation, the Norwegian Institute of International Affairs and European Network of Election Monitoring Organizations, among others, in observing over 30 elections worldwide. Before her tenure at the Commission, she was executive director of the largest civil society organization in Georgia, the International Society for Fair Elections and Democracy, where she supported the development of professional, nonpartisan election observation, and she advocated for the transparent electoral processes. Ms. Zhvania also has served in the election field with IFES's CEPS partners, the National Democratic Institute in Bangladesh and Nigeria, as well as the United Nations Development Program. It is through the work of dedicated public servants like Ms. Zhvania that democracy is built. She has spent her career working to provide democracy's fundamental building block, the right to have a say in how one is governed. Please join me in welcoming the 2017 Josie Baxter Awardee for Excellence in Election Administration, Tamar Zhvania.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to address this very respectful audience on such a pleasant occasion. It is a great honor for me to stand here and be among the recipients of the Honorable Award. The Josie Baxter Annual Award honors those who have devoted their service to the advancement of election administration. It's not easy to express what I felt following my nomination for this honorable award. Gratitude, pride, and encouragement are among those emotions I have, as I am privileged to join all the prominent individuals who were worthy of receiving the Josie Baxter Award in previous years. To be honest, starting from the moment when I first got involved in the field of elections, the path to this award was rather long and challenging. On the way of promoting changes and introducing new initiatives, there is always doubt and inner struggle within each leader that requires great courage to overcome. I believe this award served as an incentive to each of its past recipients and gave them courage to continue serving their principles. For me, personally, receiving this award is an encouraging sign that I must continue to be even more eager and, if required, to fight for the progress in which I believe. If we look through the history of elections in Georgia, a special emphasis should be placed on the first democratic elections held in independent Georgia in 1919. Those elections demonstrated a very high level of inclusiveness and compliance with democratic principles, including not only for the right of women to vote, but also the fact that women candidates were elected to the Constituent Assembly. In addition, electoral rights were granted to representatives of ethnic minorities. This level of democratic principles introduced in election processes were quite rare at this time across the world. That independence lasted a very short period of time, and after 70 years under the Soviet Union, Georgia started to develop its electoral culture again later in 1990, when the country regained its independence. For the next 27 years, Georgian society was facing diverse political situations and tensions. During the period, Georgia experienced civil war, the Rose Revolution in 2003, and it was only after the 2012 parliamentary elections that the first peaceful transition of power took place and the government was changed through peaceful and democratic elections. These elections are considered as a milestone in the process of advancing electoral culture. In such a strained environment, Georgian people were learning to nurture their demand for more democratic and credible elections. In each of these decades, the electoral processes in independent Georgia were facing different challenges. And still, from elections to elections, observers noted the improved election environment and the increased trust of electoral stakeholders. This progress is the result of our combined efforts, the lessons learned from the past experience, as well as the support we receive from different electoral actors. However, all of this would have been impossible without the support of the international community and international organizations that promote the work of the election administration in Georgia. I would like to acknowledge the work of the IFES team in Georgia. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they have provided the foundation for each of our new initiatives. Our collaboration over the years has resulted in plenty of successful projects. Since 1995, the Georgian electoral environment has benefited from the support of IFES. Their support covers the areas of election legislation, capacity building of election administration, strengthened advocacy and leadership skills through training, also inclusiveness, civic and voter education projects, women's political engagement, and more and more. Here today, I must highlight some of the joint achievements in which IFES holds an important stake in Georgia. The systematic and coordinated approach towards electoral security is one of the most recent accomplishments with IFES. It gave us an opportunity to ensure a more secure environment for voters and more coordinated responses to the security challenges during election periods. Facilitation of the process that resulted in uniform approach and better regulation of the cases related to the misuse of administrative resources. This process is being supported by IFES since 2010. And during these years, more civil society organizations and political parties have joined the Memorandum of Understanding signed in the respect. Another positive result of IFES support is increased youth participation through one of the most popular CEC educational projects, which is named as the Electoral Development Schools, which engage youth in the electoral processes. The project includes outreach to ethnic minority youth, also youth in settlements of internally displaced persons, IDPs, and the region close to the conflict zone. The deliverables of the project are amazing. It gave many youth possibilities not only to get knowledge on electoral-related issues, but also to be employed within election administration. IFES also played an important role in developing new services for persons with disabilities, promoting our election environment to be more inclusive. Their involvement in the process of developing an electoral integrity plan for election administration assisted to CEC to manage and mitigate electoral risks, as well as develop effective ways of respond. IFES also actively supported the development of the CEC gender equality policy, which made Georgian election administration one of the entities with the most balanced gender representation. Other successful examples of our partnership with IFES are capacity building for election administration officials, improved electoral dispute resolution process, and expert assistance in various areas. Thanks to this collaboration, the notion of a better election environment has become reality. IFES has worked in 145 countries, and similar success stories in each country illustrate the great scale of the organization's work promoting democracy worldwide and underline the significance of its mission. I would like to express my personal gratitude to IFES board members. A special gratitude to IFES President and CEO, Mr. Bill Zhvania, for being a strong supportive force. To IFES Chief of Party, Mr. Nermin Nisic, for sharing our challenges for many years. To IFES Georgian Chief of Party, Mr. Jerome Leroux, and each person at the IFES office in Georgia and at headquarters in Washington, D.C. Their work worldwide has a profound effect and value. All these efforts led the Georgian election administration to frequently be named by international organizations as the regional leader in promoting new approaches and policies that are often considered best practices. It makes other election management bodies keen to share and introduce already proven successful projects in their activities. For the last 4 years, since I have actually chaired the Georgian election administration, we directed our efforts to develop our election management body as a provider of effective services. The biggest emphasis was placed on the inclusiveness of election processes and its transparency. We included educational projects as a main pillar in our strategic plan and promoted large-scale educational policy. We successfully implemented new technologies for internal management as well as for promoting transparent processes and user-friendly services for voters and other electoral stakeholders. In 2014, we made gender equality a priority and started working in various directions, including publishing the statistical data and considering to institutionalize gender policy in all our activities. This award once again puts an emphasis on the importance of the results we have achieved together with all electoral stakeholders in Georgia. Though it is a personal award, it also goes to each Georgian voter, and I want to share this honor with each of them as they made it possible to succeed in every new initiative and to achieve tangible progress. At each stage of my work, the main source of motivation was the team and the people surrounding me, who were united to deliver better services to voters and advance the election environment. Each teeny step forward was the most powerful stimulus and driving force, leading us to deliver even more impressive results. I want to thank each person within the Georgian election administration for their dedication and their coordinated work. I would also like to thank those people who have been standing with me, my colleagues, my friends, they are here, and my family. Once again, thank you for this honor. I believe that this recognition will play an important part for my successors and will inspire them to achieve more on the way of building real democracy. Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations to Tamar Zhvania on your award, your most deserving award. Please welcome tonight's dinner co-chair and IFES board director, Denise Napier, to the stage. Well, you want to get up? Yeah, come over here.
Good evening, everybody. Your Excellency, where is he? Where is he? Where? I want to see him. Oh, he wasn't in here? Oh, there he is. Did you think it was going to take this long? I know. And I've already. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I have the pleasure of introducing tonight's international recipient of the 2017 Charles T. Manatt Democracy Award, His Excellency Luis Almagro. That's his name. And I have, no, I'm not, no, you can't go up here, yeah. Okay, come on up here. And I did want to say one thing about the individual whose namesake is the award that Louise will be receiving this evening. She is here. The wife of Charlie Manatt. Is she still here or did she leave? Kathleen? Kathleen? I feel your spirit, Kathleen. Our distinguished honoree currently serves as the 10th Secretary General of the Organization of American States, having been elected by a near unanimous vote of the member states in 2015. Upon taking office in that same year, he announced that one of the central themes of his mandate would be more rights for more people. His long, successful career as a Uruguayan lawyer, diplomat, and public official prepared him well to champion such a noble mandate. And for some of us in the financial services industry, we would call it a double line objective. He served as Minister of Foreign Affairs for President Jose Mujica from 2010 through 2015, a strong proponent of human and civil rights at the regional and global level. He strengthened the image of Uruguay as a democratic and diverse society. And that drew global recognition for such a small South American country, as it became the largest per capita contributor to the UN peacekeeping forces. He also served as the Uruguayan people. He served for them as an elected senator. He has been a champion for democracy and freedom in Venezuela. As a member of the Union of South American Nations delegation to Venezuela in 2014, he was recognized as an advocate of dialogue between the government and the opposition, calling for an end to violence. In that same year, he was recognized as a leading global thinker by Foreign Policy magazine. His leadership in promotion of democracy and human rights in Latin America and around the world are what we are here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, to honor. Please join me in welcoming His Excellency, Luis Almagro, the international recipient of the Charles T. Manatt Democracy Award.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank the Manatt family who are here representing Charles T. Manatt, our namesake this evening. It is an honor to be here with you this evening among many good friends, an illustrious crowd, and my fellow honorees. First of all, I would like to offer warm congratulations to you and the entire IFES family on your 30th anniversary. Universal suffrage is a cornerstone of democracy. Your commitment to promoting democracy, good governance, and free and fair elections practice is an important example of the role international community can play in strengthening these values around the world. IFES and the OAS have a long-standing tradition of cooperation in these efforts with national electoral authorities and election observation. A relationship we finally got around to formalizing through a cooperation agreement in 2014. In this space, we often talk about shared principles and values. Today, and at this moment, I'm pleased to underline the sincerity in my voice when I speak of our shared values. The unwavering commitment of your organization to democracy, good governance, and human are truly values that we have in common. I would also like to congratulate my fellow honorees this evening. Thank you to each of you for your inspired remarks. The very premise that each year these hours are presented to representatives of different political stripes, different countries, and different elements of the democratic process is an important reminder of the fact that democracy is strengthened by many voices, a reminder that we must care about our opponents' right to express their views as much as our own. And although we don't always agree on how to get there, everyone who chooses the path of public services does it for the greater good. Friends, members of the diplomatic community, current and former members of Congress, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow honorees, it humbles me to be here with you this evening receiving your recognition. It is particularly humbling that it is for my efforts advocating on behalf of the citizens of Venezuela, a country whose tragedy we in the international community have watched it slowly unfold. Over the past few years, we have witnessed the democratic institutions in Venezuela, the rule of law and effective governance all be dismantled, piece by piece. Instead, they have been replaced by dictatorial rule, corruption, and violence. Democracy in Latin America has been hard-earned, and the price paid by many countries has been high. The achievement of the consolidation of a hemisphere of democracies over the last 2 decades is an accomplishment that this region should be very proud of. It was a demonstration of the clear success of the hemisphere commitment to the principles that are the very heart of the Organization of American States. The commitment of democratic institutions, individual liberty, and social justice based on the essential rights of man are enshrined in the preamble of our founding charter. Is this institution commitment to the principle of democracy? Your recognition today is particularly humbling because I am being recognized for meeting my responsibility as Secretary General of this organization. This is my job description. This is why the institution has created numerous treaties to promote and protect the rights and principles. As Secretary General, this is my responsibility to be the staunchest defender of these rights, and it is the responsibility to give my voice to those who have had theirs taken away. The path that the regime in Venezuela has chosen has been methodical and deliberate. In a democracy, a government legitimacy comes directly from the ultimate sovereign, the people. After years of corrupt practices resulted in the loss of their popular support, instead of changing course, the regime instead sought to dismantle their democratic institutions and choose increasingly authoritarian practices to hold on to their power and protect their privileges. The courts have been politicized to the point where they serve as puppets of the corrupt regime. There is no more rule of law. The essential elements, the fundamental components of democracy have been systematically and repeatedly violated. There is no separation or independence of powers. The practice of periodic free and fair elections based on universal and secret suffrage no longer exist. Instead, they have been replaced by an illegitimate so-called National Constituent Assembly. From the outset, the process that created this institution was plagued by irregularities and violence. The Venezuelan business that has been managing its voting platform since 2004 has publicly stated that the outcomes were manipulated. In March, the Venezuelan Supreme Court, trying to remove the constitutionally mandated authorities of the legitimate, democratically elected National Assembly. In response, Venezuelans took to the streets en masse to protest the loss of democracy. The government responded to their voices with tear gas and bullets, and more than 100 Venezuelans were killed in the weeks that followed. The regime constructed the false Constituent Assembly, depriving the National Assembly of its constitutionally mandated authorities. Democracy, death spiral in Venezuela began with the illegal annulment of the recall referendum, a move that is equivalent to annulling a constitutionally mandated election. Elections are at the heart of the democratic process. Their free, fair, and transparent execution is a key symbol of the health of a democracy. Everyone, especially dictators, love elections when they win. The real test of democracy is how leaders respond when they lose. The peaceful transition of governments is a hallmark of the democratic process. We have since witnessed the perversion of every governing institution, from the bureaucracy responsible for the basic health and well-being of their citizens, to those that are intended to guarantee basic security, to those that exist to protect the human rights. Now that the remains of these institutions are focused on preserving the control of the regime and regarding those in power, any individual who dares to stand up against the government suffers. The regime has activated Plan Zamora, a state policy which turned the country into a military operation theater, systematically targeting and repressing individuals who are critical or oppose the government of Venezuela as internal enemies. In recent months, thousands have been arbitrarily detained, released, tortured, and even killed. Hundreds have been illegally brought before ad hoc military tribunals on trumped-up charges, including treason or expressing opposing views. The number of political prisoners reached the highest level in that country since the dictatorship of 1950. The crimes cannot go on with impunity. The regime in Venezuela has implemented a state policy of human violation and a systematic attack against the civilian population. It is clear for the world to see. This is why I appointed a former prosecutor from the International Criminal Court and panel of independent legal experts to investigate and assess whether crimes against humanity have been committed. The international community has a duty to ensure that those responsible for these crimes are held accountable. The OAS will work to support efforts to investigate these crimes and explore the possibility that this crime be tried by the ICC. The most important question before is, how do we help restore democracy in Venezuela? How to restore the political life of a country? The history of our region tells us that there are only a few ways dictatorships end: sanctions, death, military intervention, revolution, or coup d'etat. None of these solutions are good. All of those would result in a greater suffering for the Venezuelan people. This is not what we want. We do not want to isolate Venezuelan people, but support them and condemn the dictatorial regime. The ideal situation for everyone involved is a negotiated solution, but such a solution is not possible if clear preconditions are not met. It has been made clear time and again that the requirements are: the National Constituent Assembly must be annulled. There must be an immediate end of all repression in the country, including the release of all political prisoners. A full investigation of the corruption and criminal acts by members of the regime and their subordinated to ensure there is accountability for the crimes committed against the people of Venezuela. The restoration of the constitutional order with full respect for the separation of powers, include that the establishment of Supreme Court with legitimately appointed judges. This process must start with full, free and fair elections. Universal elections with qualified interaction observation. Until these conditions are not met, We cannot pretend that this regime has interest in restoring democracy to the country. Negotiations cannot be based on handing out little pieces of power. They must be grounded in the full return of democracy to the country. This evening, I'm not here to accept this award because my efforts for the cause of Venezuela warrant recognition. I am here so that I can highlight the tragedy that has taken place in Venezuela. I am here to call on the international community to do more. So far, everything we have done has been too short, a step taken a little too late. The international community must continue to apply more severe sanctions against the regime and its authorities. We must target the criminals that have and are destroying the vibrant society of the Venezuelan people. The countries of the hemisphere have declared that they will not accept the results of the National Constituent Assembly of July 30. Finally, we must admit that the deterioration of democracy represents a threat to peace and security in the hemisphere. Why does this matter? Yes, the humanitarian crisis creates a threat of a migratory crisis beyond the 3 million Venezuelans that have fled in the past few years that contribute to the stabilization of the region. Yes, the elimination of the rule of law, the stabilization and perseverance of corruption and organized crime is spreading throughout the region in the form of drugs and arms and other forms of organized crime. But these are obvious and direct threats. They are not the only threats. Corruption and bad practices are contagious. They are a disease that is easily spread and establish a very dangerous precedent. If the elimination of democracy is allowed to take place unchecked, an authoritarian Venezuelan sets a very disturbing example for the future of democracy in the region. As a hemisphere rooted in the proud tradition of democracy and human rights, we must uphold our commitment to principles and values. We must continue to reaffirm our solidarity with the people of Venezuela, and we must maintain this commitment to all the people of the Americas. Thank you very much.
I think we've just heard a sober and powerful reminder of the importance that all of those of you in this room do and why it's so important. I feel truly honored to have been a part of tonight's celebration of democracy and these four remarkable individuals. I look around this room and I see in every corner people who are some of the greatest minds and talent in American politics, and those of you from around the world who do so much to ensure the democratic representation of your people. We commend all of you. I would be remiss if I didn't ask Kathy Manatt, the Manatt family, to please stand, as well as the family members and members of the Manatt law firm. Please stand. As a 25-year-old, when I first met Chuck Manatt, there was no reason in the world for him to be nice to me, but he was exceedingly nice to me and just was a role model for everybody in American politics. And the fact that we have a dinner named in honor of a former Democratic National Chairman, attended by a former Republican National Chairman, Frank Fahrenkopf, who gave an amazing eulogy for Chuck, says what American politics is supposed to be about. I want to thank Finally, I want to applaud the IFES team led by Bill for their continued efforts to give every vote a voice. And please give me join me in a round of applause for the honorees and their colleagues. Thank you for coming tonight, and I hope to see you next year. Have a good evening and safe travels.